Thursday, 12:39 p.m., 34th Street and West Side Highway in Manhattan. So I was driving home in this vicious West Side Highway rush hour traffic that you see behind me, and I realized I said something stupid in this podcast I'm about to play with the Moshes Brothers, Benjamin and Joshua, who are the data gurus who've been tracking congestion pricing in New York City. I realized that I speculated that maybe the reason that the evening commutes have gotten quicker while the morning commutes have stayed the same is that people are waiting until after the 9 o'clock hour to go home when the rates drop a little bit. But I realize that can't be it because they pay on the way in, you don't pay when you go out. So now I'm thinking, and you'll have to think about it when we get to that section of the interview, that maybe it's that in the morning the commutes are busy both ways, but in the evening now people who would come into Manhattan to go to restaurants and nightlife or whatever it is are staying home. I don't know. I have to get in touch with our guest to find out more. But look at that traffic. Look at that traffic. That's old school New York City traffic. There was no accident. There was no road work. That was the traffic to the West Side Highway. And I should say two more things. When I was a kid, the West Side Highway used to be 2 levels, and the top level collapsed, and New York City never replaced it. So that made the traffic permanently slower. The second thing is, I made such a stupid mistake. When you're young, you make stupid mistakes. You don't give it a second thought. But now that I'm 60, every time I make a stupid mistake, I assume that's it. Early Alzheimer's. Your mind's just not working anymore. So that's something that's on the horizon for all of you once you get to be my age. All right, so enjoy our interview here with Benjamin and Joshua Moshes, the fantastic data gurus behind the congestion pricing tracker, who are going to tell us whether or not congestion pricing in New York City is working.
This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar, available wherever you get your podcasts, and available on YouTube, which is the best way to enjoy the show because you get audio and video.
And sometimes I do a lot of editing, and I put in a lot of video clips and stuff. I don't know about for this episode, but I've worked hard on some of these episodes.
No one puts in the work.
We got, by the way, before these guys, we had a lot of views on our last show about the conspiracy theories. Anyway, go ahead.
So we have first of all, this is Dan Natterman. As you know, we have with us Noam Dorman.
Yeah.
Who's the owner of the Comedy Cellar and making a bit of a name for himself as a political pundit. He's been praised by the likes of Michael Moynihan.
My friends.
Yeah, Coleman Hughes. Yes, they are your friends, but I think they are legitimately impressed by you. We have Periel Ashenbrand here.
Let them pay their bill in the olive tree, see if they praise me.
And with us via the miracle of teleconferencing.
Yeah.
Via Zoom, we have Wonderkins, economic honor students from Brown. It's a fine school in Providence, Rhode Island. Not a great town, but the school is good. Benjamin and Joshua Moshes, or Moshes.
Your brothers?
Yeah.
Are the mics working? Let's hear you, fellas.
Yes, we are. Yes. Except Joshua is from Northeastern. Not Brown.
Oh, correct. That is correct. I'm reading your bio, Northeastern, but no less intelligent. He just didn't apply himself.
Dan doesn't want to do 1 second more preparation than he has to. If he doesn't want to read through the introduction.
And Kat Timp was on. I read her whole book, and I was the only one who did so.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so go ahead.
So yes, they are tracking the effects of congestion pricing in New York, which Noam's always been against. My position, just to preface on congestion pricing, has always been the same. It hasn't changed. I was hoping for the best, rooting for it, but willing to look at the data. And I think that's the only sensible position. Anyway, welcome Benjamin and Joshua Moshes to our show.
Okay, fellas. I want to get from you if it's working or it's not working. But let me tell you, I commute and have commuted, most days for many, many years now. And after congestion pricing went into effect on January 5th, I think it was, of 2025, it was a breeze getting to work. I mean, it fell off a cliff, and it was just, it scared me. but it was just astounding how fast I was getting into work. And this went on for a few months. For the last 2 or 3 months, my commute is 100% back to where it was. My traveling cross town is completely where it was. If there is a slight difference cross town, it's de minimis, one of Dan's favorite words. Not that, meaning de minimis in the sense that I wouldn't have noticed it if you had been able to do this congestion pricing thing without me knowing about it. I wouldn't say like, "Hey, why is traffic so light today? Did somebody die? Is it a Jewish holiday?" It's just
it is a Jewish holiday.
So yeah, that's right. Today my commute was awful.
And a Shana Tova to all who celebrate.
And then today I've been going through the data on your website, and I know I'm talking a lot. And you guys haven't said anything yet. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like congestion pricing is doing the job. So why don't you, I don't know who, are you twins?
We're not twins. I'm 3 years older.
Okay, so does the older brother get the privilege of tell us what is your take on congestion pricing? Is it working? Is it working partially? Is it lived up to its expectations? And does it warrant the harsh tax that it actually is on middle class people who have no choice but to pay now? Because they don't have the option of public transportation. So go ahead. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, of course. And Joshua, fill in as you see me missing things. But I think just to start, from the very beginning, looking at congestion pricing, we were always on the side of let's put the data in front of people and let people make their own judgments. So we were very weary of making conclusions ourselves. We wanted people to look at the data, talk about their own anecdotal experience, and then, tell us what they're seeing and then what they think of the data. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we've spent a lot of time looking at our own data and analyzing what we've seen. I think from the very beginning, there were 3 trends that were very visible that I think even until now are still visible in the data, even though patterns are somewhat changing now that we're, 7 months into the program. The 3 patterns we saw were, 1, and this is what you were mentioning about your commute from work, on the bridges and tunnels from New Jersey, from Brooklyn, into the congestion zone, we saw significant differences in traffic that I think are still holding. So a lot, way fewer cars are entering the congestion zone after congestion pricing began. And that was a big difference for people who say commute to work from New Jersey to New York, they travel via car, or businesses trying to get goods in. For them, this was a big time saver when they were crossing the bridge. In the congestion zone itself, we did see small decreases, and there's also a smaller volume of cars traveling throughout the zone, but that was much smaller. And the theories that we've heard about this are, 1, that there's a lot more commuter cars that cross from New Jersey or Brooklyn into the island, but there's way more lifts and taxis that circulate around the actual island. So that's why there were like Manhattan. That's why there was way fewer, a smaller decrease of cars and thus traffic on in Manhattan itself, but still a decrease. And then the third trend that we noticed is that on what we called spillover routes. So routes that were sort of around where the congestion zone was, but not in the congestion zone. So say upper Manhattan or, in parts of Brooklyn, we saw small increases in traffic. So the theory here was that people were sort of driving around the zone now or driving on different routes. But those decreases were very small. And in some places we saw decreases too. That was a smaller.
Let me stop you there because by the way, they have a website, congestion-pricing-tracker.com, which amazingly is the only thing there is really that you can look at to see this. So just to give you an example, you said, I looked at Wednesday, today's Wednesday, Holland Tunnel. Before January 5th, which is before congestion pricing, it took 18 minutes at 7:45 a.m. during rush hour and 15 minutes at 6 p.m. rush hour. Now, according to this, it's taking 15 minutes, a 3-minute savings, and at 6 p.m. it's a 2-minute savings. So traffic is 3 minutes faster. that can't be anybody's. And it was much. It had to be. I don't know if you have access to the data like from February. It'd be interesting to see. You'd be doing a service if you'd post some of the historical data so that people can see how the trend is changing over time. Your site doesn't allow for that, or just if we could download the data set for ourselves. But 3 minutes savings is not anybody's idea of a significant difference, and that's from Jersey. So if you had said we're going to charge everybody $9 or $200 a month so that we can save 3 minutes, people say you can't charge people $9 a month to save 3 minutes, right? No, who could defend that based on that result? And I'm not cherry picking. There are some routes here where it's actually busier, as you say, and then I'll get to where the hugest increase in time, decrease in traffic time is, and it's very bad for, I think, congestion pricing advocates. But anyway, first, respond to what I'm saying. This is not a significant speed up as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So
Joshua, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think my brother and I are trying not to really like pick sides of whether or not there should be this like whether it's the cost of the like congestion policy or like if there shouldn't be this cost or like all of that. We just want to put the data out there for everyone to see. So we're not really going to be emphasizing whether we agree with it or not.
Okay.
We just kind of
are
want
you
to show...
aware of the projections of what people expected the time savings to be at this point in time at the tunnels from Jersey? Can we measure it against what the model said?
Yeah. So I think because this was done for the first time in the United States, like the projections were sort of like very varied. And I think people did not anticipate the big difference between the tunnel differences and then also the differences in Manhattan. I would point you to take a look at some of the other data points because
Well, I'll look it up. What do you want me to look at?
I think the Holland Tunnel on a Wednesday might be a little bit of an outlier. If you look at like the Holland Tunnel on Tuesday or a Thursday, or if you look
Okay,
at
I'll look
the
it up.
Lincoln Tunnel on some of these like peak driving days, you can see that like at peak times, the Lincoln Tunnel on a Tuesday went from a 12-minute drive to a 7-minute drive, and
Okay.
like Holland Tunnel on a Thursday, like
Okay,
at
I'm
peak
looking at
times.
Holland Tunnel on Thursday.
Where you
At 6, hold on, at 6 a.m. I'm sorry, 7 a.m. It went from 20 minutes to 15 minutes, and at 6 p.m. is a big drop, 10-minute drop from 25 minutes. Now, what's that's on a Thursday. Let's look at a Tuesday. What's interesting, and I get to it now, is that the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Okay, here's the Holland Tunnel on Tuesday, because you said Tuesday. Actually, in the morning commute, it's actually higher. The traffic has gone up on Tuesdays, according to what you're showing here, but minuscule, by 1 minute. And again, in the ride home, it's another 10 or 12 minute, depending on where you look, 10 or 12 minute difference. So I don't know why. Maybe that's because this Tuesday was a Jewish holiday. Maybe that's why it was much lower this Tuesday. I don't know. But okay, so the morning coming in was much. Maybe people in the evening are waiting until after the hour where the price goes down. So they have no choice when they come to work, but then they can wait before they go home. So perhaps they say, it's only 30 minutes till the toll cuts in half or whatever it is. So maybe I'll just go a little bit later. Maybe that explains the difference in rate. But what you're seeing on the weekends, now let me take a Sunday for the Holland Tunnel. This is very upsetting to me as a business owner because Saturdays and Sundays, obviously people are not really using the tunnels to come to work. They're coming for their leisure time to go to restaurants, go shopping, this and that. On a Sunday, before January 5th, it took 37 minutes to get into Manhattan. And after January 5th, 15 minutes. More than double. They are gutting the commercial visits to New York. Gutting it. Which is something they promised us wouldn't happen. because those are not people who are using public transportation. They're staying in Jersey.
But what are we seeing in terms of the numbers, in terms of businesses and revenue? And do you have those statistics?
They don't.
So I think the data is being pulled is that, and it's really hard to say, and it's hard to track what kind of decisions individuals are making. But it seems like what the data is saying is that on the weekends we see that public transportation ridership has gone up, car ridership has gone down. And then from the data that is pullable about how many cars are parking, visitation of businesses, it seems like businesses have not been impacted as much as people maybe have thought originally. Like people were very worried about business impacts. People were very worried about trucking things into Manhattan. It seems like businesses are saying things have been okay enough. Some truckers have switched their schedules to come in after 9 p.m., which is when the congestion surcharge goes down a lot. So I think so far the impacts to businesses have not been as bad or have not been negative at all. I think there might also be some positive impact if there's less congestion, the streets are nicer to walk around, there's less noise, people want to be in Manhattan more. I do have to say though, I was in New York about a week ago, and I see what you're saying. My commutes up and down Manhattan, I took a Lyft a couple times, were very long. It felt like there was no impact. And even if on average there is some kind of impact, for me as a lived individual taking a Lyft and at a peak time, it was so congested. It was so hard to get through Manhattan.
Yeah.
So
Now,
obviously it really depends.
Business is down by many reports, but I don't want to blame it necessarily on congestion pricing because there's a Trump effect. Tourists are not coming in. There's all kinds of moving parts. The economy, it's very difficult. Although sophisticated people who are so partisan, they'll do this. They'll say business is up over last year, therefore its congestion pricing is working, which is insane because business may be up in Oklahoma also, right? It's very, very difficult to unwind it. But I would just say, as a matter of common sense, when you have the afternoon tunnel traffic cut in, the commute times cut in half, obviously this has to be bad for business. I don't see any common sense way that anybody in good faith could say, no, I'm sure that has no effect on business. You could say, well, that's the price we pay for this public good of these faster commutes. But that wasn't the way it was sold to us because we did not ever want to harm New York. New York City is a very special place. New York City survives and could die without its special place as the center of the world, as the place where everybody wants to come for restaurants and museums and shows and whatever. And if we are creating a disincentive for people to do that so that they start to form other habits and business owners start to open in other places to compete with that, we are risking all the marbles for what makes New York special. And I won't, ask you to respond to this, but one of the things that informs my thinking, when I was a kid, there were constant TV commercials. You probably heard the song, I Love New York, da 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 da. And then they would cut in with shots of Koch or Sinatra, and they'd say, it's open all night. The city that never sleeps. Open till 4 a.m. We sold New York on the fact that it was this raucous, congested, open all-night place where you'd come to have a ball and get drunk and stay out. And now we seem to be intent on turning that ship around. For what? To save 3 minutes. Or people say, no, it's to raise all this money to fix the subways. Well, you know what? When those subways get fixed, you let me know. I'm here to predict. I'm here to predict they're never getting fixed.
Well, it's for those things. It's for, and not just that. There is also the issue of air pollution, and there's the issue of the pedestrian experience.
Then ask
which
to
is
make then let electric cars not pay the toll like they do in England. Electric cars don't pay.
Well, okay. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I'm just saying there's other rationales besides simply saving commute times. There's traffic deaths, emergency vehicles, pollution, and just a better pedestrian experience. So those are all and they are working on the 7th Avenue subway phase 2. I don't know if that has anything to do with congestion pricing or not, but I know that's underway.
All right. That's all on one side of the ledger, and again, they don't want to comment on this. The other side of the ledger is the very many stories that I know, that I'm sure everybody knows, of people, middle-class people, who cannot take public transportation to work either because it's not convenient, they have to drop off their kids, their job doesn't allow for it, they need to pick up kids at daycare. There's a million. They live in the very many transportation deserts of the 5 boroughs. There's all sorts of reasons. They're too old. Like I have an 80-year-old woman from me. She doesn't want to walk home at midnight from Riverdale to the subway that she get. So they have to pay this $200 a month tax. When they used to debate a 50-cent toll on the Brooklyn Bridge when I was a kid, people would freak out. You can't burden people with a 50-cent toll. And all of a sudden, in one fell swoop, give them $9 a day. And going up to, what's the goal? Up to 15. They can afford it. It's insane. Mom Donnie will love it. So go ahead, Dan. Dad's making a face like I cut him off. What do you want to say, Dan?
I didn't want to say anything. I said you said that the rationale was a shorter commute time, and I just said that there was more rationale. There's more to it than that.
Well, we asked Alex Matheson and that other woman, Catherine Wild. Both of these people, you know these names. These were people integral in the planning and the selling of this plan. And I asked them both in our podcast, how will you know that it's working, or when would you admit that it was a failure? And they both said, if traffic comes back. That's all. That's what they both said. If traffic comes back, it's a failure. And now what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, the price wasn't high enough. Because that's always the liberal line. New York doubled the amount of money that it spends on school kids, and the scores went down. Oh, well, of course, you needed to triple the money. That will always be the thing. So, guys, I'm talking a lot. We want to hear from you. Come on, say whatever's on your mind about this.
Yeah, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and the argument you're making is great. I think, like, to play devil's advocate, what people would say about the weekend traffic, for example, is that, if now instead of taking 25 minutes to cross the bridge, it takes 12 or 15, then it's all about demand. And so, the people who were on the margin who probably could have taken public transportation, but because it was free to drive or they didn't pay the toll, they were driving and they were creating traffic. It was making it harder for everyone to get into the city. So people don't want to wait in traffic. They, check Waze, they check Google Maps. It's going to take me like 50 minutes in total to get to my destination. I'm not going to go. So if those people are now taking public transportation, which there is good data that they are taking public transportation
on weekends,
because ridership has gone up on public transportation.
Do you have that data for the weekends from Jersey? Do you have that data from the weekends from Jersey, public transportation?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have specifically weekends from Jersey on public transportation. We know that in general, usage of public transportation has gone up.
But it was on a trend line up already since COVID. So it's important to say it may be up. I mean, it has to be up somewhat from congestion pricing, of course, but also it was on the way up. I still don't think it's where it was prior to COVID. So you would, you can put it however you want, but I don't doubt that it's up. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of validating to do with all of this data and making sure that congestion pricing is whatever effect we're talking about, whether it's air pollution or public transportation or number of cars in Manhattan. We always want to be checking that this is something that is congestion pricing caused and not caused by the hundreds of different factors that could be causing it. That's actually why on our website we had a second graph where we were comparing traffic in New York to traffic in Boston and Chicago, and seeing if there was a difference in the difference between the traffic in New York and Boston and New York and Chicago. And we did see that traffic went down a little bit more than it did in Boston and Chicago over the same period, which again was pointing to some sort of effect, even if it wasn't very large. But again, what the thought can be is that the people who don't really need to be taking a car, they started taking public transportation on the weekends, and the people who actually really need to drive for whatever reason, they're elderly, or public transportation is really inconvenient. Now it's much faster for them to get into Manhattan, and so they're more likely to go in the first place because they see that it's faster to get in.
Yeah.
That could be a story. There's lots of different
My
stories and lots of
can I
different
say
like anecdotal situations.
my
So,
my
you
very
can argue it one or
my,
Joshua, I don't know if you what you were thinking on the subject.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that you said, and there could be like many factors to all of this. One thing I was going to add is that so we know that the majority of where the traffic went down was the tunnels and bridges leading into Manhattan, and so there wasn't as much of a decrease inside. Like the first five routes on our website, if you look at them, they some of them have decreased on certain days, but a lot of them are also kind of like the same. And so that would mean that, like, okay, again, many factors, like many reasons for this to happen, but it could mean that people get in there with public transportation, they use public transportation, and then they like they take taxis or whatever within the zone, and that also causes the traffic to stay similar to the way that it was before.
so
Another thing.
let me say two things. The first thing, of course, it's very important. Of course, there's some of everything. So what you're saying, I'm sure, describes some number of people. But since taxis cost almost always more than the extra $9, although I guess then you have to figure in where they were parking. I don't know. I can do the math. But
Parking can be so pricey, to be
yeah,
fair.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
per hour can totally make up the difference between taking a taxi and
Yeah,
driving.
yeah. So but I can't do that math in my head quickly enough to think all of it. But the earlier thing you said, I have the very strong gut feeling that families in Jersey are not getting on a bus with their kids to come in to have brunch in New York City on a Sunday afternoon. I don't buy that. To me, that's something you get in the car, you go into the city, and well, let me ask you guys a question, because I know you take donations on there. There is all sorts of data which we'd all like to know. One is, as I said, the historical data. Has it, how is it track it since January 5th, week by week, the percentage change. Another thing would be what you referred to before, the public transportation from Jersey on the weekends. There's all sorts of things like that. You guys are working for free now, basically. What would it take to commission you guys in such a way, like to maybe do a deeper dive into the data? I might be willing to put some money towards that as a public service, as long as you come out the way I want you to. No. Obviously, I'm kidding. But would donations help for that? No one's doing it. There's no. Nobody's doing this. We don't know, and we can't trust Hochul to tell us.
Hey, for the right amount of money, we can I think we can uncover anything you'd like in the data. So we can find any answer.
Find any answer, but obviously you mean with integrity, right?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
joking. I'm
yeah.
joking. No, like I think honestly, like looking into what the data that we've collected, we can do that. Donation or not. Like if there were specific questions you were curious about, we can just try to look into it and see what we had before. We basically the story here is that we started collecting this data back in May of 2024, and then we collected it for an entire summer. We paused for a little while after the plan was paused by Governor Hochul, and then we started collecting the data again in late November of 2024, and then continued collecting the data. So we have a large amount of data that tells different stories. Obviously, at the time, in the first couple of weeks of January, we were looking at every single day of data and reading into things very closely.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was particularly clear, like from the days of, the week of January 5th compared to the week prior, which again, there were questions about like holidays and whatnot, but like even then it was very clear that, there was a huge difference. But of course, like, the bigger picture was what was most important. But if there were specific questions,
it was huge. I was joking in like February. It's like this is like I Am Legend. Like it was like the apocalypse. The streets were so empty, and then I would take a taxi, and a taxi driver like they're going to bankrupt New York. They're going to put New York out of business. It was so obvious that traffic was gone, and now it's just as obvious that traffic is right back. And you guys, you should crunch the numbers and issue a press release either way. Either say New York traffic is back to where it was, or traffic has sustained its low pace. But since you're the only guys doing this, and there's tremendous national interest in this, not just in New York City, but other cities that are contemplating the same thing, I would strongly encourage you guys to crunch that data. I can even connect you with a pretty well-known statistical guy who knows how to do these things for news shows and stuff like that. Very, very, again, a lot of integrity. Nobody's trying to be corrupt here in any way. But maybe you guys don't even need that. You're very smart kids. What do you want to say about young men? Men. Go ahead.
I would caution you, Noam.
Wait, Perry, I want to say something. Go ahead. Okay.
No, I was just curious as whose idea this was. That like, are you guys from New York? Like, this is such a niche thing, and it's so interesting that like one of you, let alone two brothers, were like, let's dive into this like insane thing, and the other one was like, oh yeah, I want to do that too.
I don't think they're from New York, judging by their accents, but
Well,
you'll correct
do
me.
we really give Boston that much?
Well, you don't give New York.
I think here I'll tell the first half of the story, and then Josh, you tell the second half, like the building part. I think the way that this began is I, as an economics student, was
Okay.
introduced to a data set very early on. It was like 2 years ago, where we were looking at taxis, and it was a big data set on like how taxis were like basically like ride by ride data on taxis. And I noticed that like back in 2019, New York City instituted this congestion surcharge to a much smaller scale. And it was specifically on taxis and for hire vehicles like Ubers and Lyfts to try to, curb the number of those vehicles a little bit, make it a little bit easier for people to commute inside the congestion zone. And I got really curious about this. And by, April, May of 2024, I was thinking about writing an honors thesis my senior year about this congestion surcharge that was done in 2019 and like seeing if there were any impacts, if like people were taking fewer taxis or not. So I spoke to my thesis advisor, who's a wonderful professor, Emily Oster. She's just absolutely brilliant. She works at Brown. I was telling her about this, and she was like, this is great, but New York City is about to implement this much larger congestion pricing plan in July of 2024. You should think about how can you collect this data, or maybe scrape, like collect this data online and try to see what are the effects of this new plan. Like, this sounds great, but I don't know how to code. I need someone to help me with this.
Okay.
So I enlisted my brother, who's, a brilliant coder and a brilliant with data. And so we started working and trying to collect the data in advance so we could see like what are the trends with traffic now, and then after July, whenever it was supposed to start, like what are they going to be? But then about 3 weeks in advance, Governor Hochul indefinitely postponed the program. We were disappointed, but we still kept collecting the data just in case. And then November rolls around and the program is back on. So we sort of hop back on this. And again, by that point, I switched my thesis topic. I wrote my thesis about something completely different, or similar but very different. But I talked to the professor, and she says, you know what? It would be great if you made a website to showcase the data you have, and maybe some people would take interest. And I'm like, this is great, but a website is not something I can build. So, back to my brother, and then Joshua, do you want to talk about like what the process was like, and like
But who's the older one again, Benjamin or Joshua?
I'm older. I'm 3 years
Benjamin.
older.
30. You're 30.
No.
No.
3 years.
I'm
Oh, 3 years.
22.
Okay. 22. Yeah, I was going to say. Sorry about that. Yeah, Joshua, hit it.
Yeah. So then basically what happened was, my brother said that we scraped it over the summer. Then we started again late November. We had some problems with the scraper, and we ended up collecting data more like from early December. And so then when my Emily Oster gave my brother the idea that we should make this into a website, shouldn't be too hard. So then, like, I made the website, connected to the data. We came up with the two graphs on the website, and then published that. And then, like, yes, it got a lot of attention because no one else made
one else did it.
like a visualization of the data.
By the way, there
And
is
the attention was pretty crazy. Like, not something we could have anticipated at all. We were wondering if, like, if there's gonna be 10 people who see it or 100 people. And then, we got, I think, like 100,000 impressions on the first day.
Wow.
And there were like news outlets. The New York Times reached out to us like I think the first evening, because again, like, no one knew the data, no one knew what was going on. All these different news sites that we have listed on our site started reaching out. It was
Did you-
and then
did you-
running the site became so expensive because there were so many people who were trying to see the data and then, like, create graphs. So we were losing a lot of money. That's why we started the donations, so that we wouldn't become indebted because of the project.
Can I ask a question?
We're
Yeah,
kidding,
and
but
like-
it was very expensive.
Did you have the
So-
following experience? You're lying in bed and say to yourself, "Oh shit! I hope did I get it wrong?" Like there's so much writing on your data. You're the only ones presenting the data. Did you have this panic that maybe our data's not accurate? Maybe we didn't think of this. Maybe we didn't think of that.
I think we were like thinking about everything. The first like 24 hours especially was crazy because we started getting, like, first it was like 100 views and we were like, whoa, who are those people?
Yeah.
And then it was more and more people, and then we got the email from the New York Times and we were like, whoa, this is crazy. And then basically, I think that day, the first day, we stayed up like 4 or 5 a.m. just like checking everything over, and I was optimizing the website, and my brother was checking that all the data was accurate. Yeah, so
So by the way, just
Yes.
there's
And there were like, and we had like I hundreds of people emailing us, and these were just like, I mean, across the board, different people, but asking us questions and like curious about the data. And there were obviously some people who were like, questioning the data and how's it working. And that was great because that made us go back and, like, honestly become more confident in the process we had. We were very concerned about our data being correct and, like, making sure that what we were putting out there is accurate. I think what was great is that we had spent at that point more than 6 months working with this data, and we'd spent a lot of time building the site and checking the graphs. And then obviously as we started, we were so, like, by the point that the site was out there, there have been so many checks that had gone through. And then as, like, anecdotally and, like, from other sources, people were, like, confirming what we were seeing, we became more and more and more confident that what we were showing was very accurate. But that was kind of that was very important to us to make sure that what we were showing was, because a lot of people were seeing it and news sources were citing it and everything.
I would be panicked if I were you. By the way, just as I was talking to you,
Right.
there's another website, C2 Smarter, C2 Smarter, engineering.nyu.edu, and they have some data, but it's spotty. It stops in July, but it shows that all the crossings from where I live, Westchester County, are up. They're all orange, which means up. It shows that the Hugh Carey Tunnel is down. So again, I don't see any evidence of a significant success here whatsoever. But this Henry Hudson data, that's where I travel from. There's like a little bridge. You don't realize there's a bridge, the Henry Hudson
So can you
bridge.
walk this back? Like, if it's not working, are
They'll
they
never
going
walk
to
it
kill
back.
this $9?
They'll never walk.
Well,
it back.
I would never say never.
Never.
I would never say never.
Well, give me
Well, how
give me
many-
a list of the other times government has instituted a tax or
Prohibition.
And
I
they-
mean, that's not a tax, but
and then they started spending the money. They started depending their budgets on it, and then they canceled it and blew a hole in their budget. As my father used to say, expenses always rise to meet income. and that's what always happens. And as soon as there's a stream of money, they start spending it. They get dependent on it, and it doesn't matter whether traffic is attenuated or not. They will never give it up. But what they can do, perhaps, is keep it at $9 and inflate their way out of the burden of it. But I don't think they'll ever.
So bad news on that front.
Okay, it's going up.
If you were hoping that things were going to stay at $9, they're not, because there's a clause in the law that I think after 3 years the price will rise to 12, and then after another years I think it's going to rise to 15. I might be getting the details of the time and the amounts wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's like fairly accurate. So it is like there's already a planned rise.
But that could potentially be changed by a future governor, or But yes,
could be.
Unlikely.
Could be.
Yeah.
It took me an hour and a half to get from 33rd and Lex to the Upper West Side last night.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
Whoa.
I am shocked. And by the way, the people that I spoke to, like, I don't want to name names, but people who were all for it, I tell them, and I take like screenshots of my Waze, which tells me exactly how long it's going to take and I say it's an hour and 5, hour and 10. And I said it's right back where it was. It never took me an hour and 20. It always took me like an hour and 5, an hour and 10 if I would leave in the middle of the day.
It's actually outrageous.
And it's exactly right back where it was. And I was like, the only silver lining to me was, as someone who makes a good living, was, well, at least I'll get into work quick. I think it's terrible what it's done for my employees and everything, but at least I'll get into work quicker, and I'm not even getting to work any quicker. It's just terrible.
And I have to say, congestion pricing or not, which again, very, clearly a big difference or not difference in what it's doing to traffic. But, commuting around Manhattan, there's so many other factors that are making traffic so much slower than I think it should be, especially when you're going east to west. The roads are so narrow, and there's a lot of parked vehicles where it probably shouldn't be. There's these truck drivers that will stop in the middle, and I know they need to unload but that slows down traffic very heavily. There's people who honestly don't follow the rules as much, and don't turn when they're in the turn lane, or they go in the wrong lane. And that makes traffic so much worse.
Years
And
ago,
so when you combine all these factors, there's also some I forget which avenue, but it used to be 3 lanes and now it's 2 or 1.
A ton of them.
All
They did
of
that with a lot of them.
years ago, I read an article, I don't know how true it is, suggesting that bad elevators were problematic because it just takes longer to get things loaded and unloaded and delivered. And so that leads to double parking and leads to more traffic. So I don't know if there's any truth to that, but linking bad elevators to
that sounds like a freakonomics theory. You know what I would do? I mean, this is probably dumb, but my inclination was, instead of charging $9, set up a few crosstown streets and charge $30, $40. Let the people. There's plenty of millionaires in New York. Let them pay much more money to get crosstown if they want to. And really, that's the progressive way to do it. Let all the rich people pay a lot of money to get around faster.
Well, either rich people or poor people that really need to get home to go to the bathroom. There have been situations where I need fast transportation and I can't get it, and I would like that option, even if it costs a lot of money. I mean, within reason, of course.
Right.
But not just to go to the bathroom, but for various reasons. If I have another spot to do, I'm a comedian. Sometimes I have a spot here, and then I have to go to Dangerfields, which is another club, more upscale club. I'm kidding. And I have to get there fast. I just don't have that option. I'd like to be able to pay an extra $30.
You'd pay $50.
Maybe not $50. But the point is, I would like the option to pay more money to get somewhere faster, and I just don't have that option.
Yeah, wasn't there a way that they could charge, and the price could vary by demand, the way Uber, what do they call that? Peak demand. What's
surge pricing?
Surge pricing.
Surge pricing.
And as I said, put it on certain streets, certain avenues, certain lanes. Even they can, the technology allows for so many things now, and allow the people who can't afford it to avoid it. Well, that seems to me, at least try it. I mean, it couldn't be any less effective than what we're seeing now. with people saving 3 or 4 minutes.
It's outrageous. It's
That's
just
an
like a
interesting
total failure, huh?
It's an interesting idea that I haven't heard proposed.
Yeah, but why don't they do it then? Because it's never been about actually congestion. It's about New York running out of money.
Well, but they would make money under your scheme as well.
Yeah, but maybe not as much. Maybe not as much.
So you guys are from Boston?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They don't have like heavy
They have.
Boston.
Well, I
they
really
don't have heavy
like.
Boston.
Where were you
accent.
guys born?
Boston, like Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay.
At least I would. We were born in the same hospital, right?
Oh, interesting.
Dan's fishing for Israel.
No. I thought I sensed like a almost Eastern European accent, but very subtly.
Were you raised by immigrants?
Yeah. Our parents are from Russia originally, but they immigrated 30 years ago.
I think
we
you
were-
might have caught some of that.
Yeah.
I do
interesting.
think that. Yeah.
Well, listen, fellas, that's. I wish you guys were a little bit more,
Do you speak Russian?
disagreeable, but and a little bit more, ornery. And do you speak Russian? Dan wants to know.
Yeah, we both speak Russian.
I think something's leaking over into your English.
You think so?
Yeah, I do,
Interesting.
especially
Interesting.
Joshua when he speaks. I
Joshua, say something.
I will.
I don't want to.
A very
I don't-
strong accent.
I don't want to make you
Is that
self-conscious because
correct?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I will break you. You guys know what that
By the
is?
way, could I ask Joshua? You're the coding guy. What's the sense among young people in coding? Like they tell us that coding is going to be AI can do all the coding. That coding's no longer a lucrative career path. Is that what the sense among young people is?
Well, it's funny because I do a lot of projects outside Congestion Tracker, and every time I do something with AI, and the AI can't do it, of course I'm annoyed that the AI can't do something for me. At the same time, I am just so happy that like, ooh, my job is saved for now. But I do think that a lot of jobs are potentially going to be taken by AI because AI can do many things. But I think there's still like a lot of stuff that I can't do, and it's just not good enough.
Well, I feel the same way about comedy. If I try to get AI to write a joke, it can do a reasonable job, but not at the level of a good human being comedian. So, at least for now, as you said.
What I find, and Tyler Cowen, you guys know Tyler Cowen is obviously the economist. He refers to AI as witchcraft, and I agree. It's sometimes I will ask it to compare and contrast two logical arguments, and I am just astounded at the high level of analysis that this computer program is able to do. If it had taken, I said this before, if I had to put it in as a question and I had to come back 6 hours later to get the response, I would still find it impossible to believe. But it spits it out in seconds. I don't understand how it's working. At first, people were telling us, "No, don't worry about AI. It's just a glorified, predictive
Google or
text.
whatever, yeah.
Predictive text. It is not a glorified predictive text. This is not predictive text. It is analyzing." Go ahead. You want to say something, Josh?
Well, okay, to that point, I also have another example of what I've been working on. There's this project I'm currently working on, and there was this problem I was facing. Just something wasn't like in an editor I was making, the format wasn't formatting correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so in like visually in my app. And so and I'm telling it like, and it seems like a very simple fix. And I told like AI, ChatGPT, like, please fix this, And so, but it can't. It's like every time I give different prompts and very detailed, very specific, and it doesn't fix it correctly. It doesn't fix it at all. Sometimes it makes it even worse. And the reason for that is because originally was trying to find code for the thing that I was doing. I was trying to find it online as like an example, like something that I can use and then build off of. And I couldn't find anything. It just doesn't exist. And all I'm building is an editor, like a text editor.
Mm-hmm. Like a WYSIWYG kind of thing.
And that, what?
Like a WYSIWYG text editor.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I'm trying to build this text editor, but there's nothing online for me to use. And AI can't do anything because it doesn't already exist. And because it doesn't already exist, it doesn't have anything that it can like build off of. It can, of course, it can still code in a certain way, and based off my instructions, it can figure out what I'm looking for. And there is some code out there that resembles what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Editor. And then like, and another thing I've recently read about was that people did this artificial intelligence study where they gave an AI, I'm not sure if it was ChatGPT or something else, they gave it like a very, very difficult math problem and step-by-step instructions of how to do the math problem. And it wasn't able to do it because it was like it never saw it before, so it couldn't follow those steps. And so I guess that's another thing with AI.
Early on,
not going to be able to.
a year ago, I had given it a relatively simple algebra problem, and it could not get it right. And I would tell it, maybe it's gotten better. I know it's a language model, LLM, so maybe that's, math is not what it was built to do, but it certainly seems to reason well. I'll tell you guys a story before we go. But I used to do coding. As a matter of fact, we were the first place to take, I think in the world, the first place to take online reservations. At first, I would enter it in. I would have comma delineated emails that I would import into a Microsoft Access database, and then I like to say I invented cloud computing because I had the idea. Because computers used to crash all the time in those days, like Windows 95. I said, you know what? I don't know how to take care of a computer. Why don't I put it all online? And that way, I figure whoever's in charge of like servers, they're going to do a better job backing up the data and all that stuff than I could ever do. So I had this idea to put it all online, and I hired a guy, and I did some myself in PHP, MySQL. So actually, if you go to the Comedy Cellar website now and make a reservation, much of that is I coded, but much of it now is coded by a guy named Steve Zaransky, who's a fantastic coder. So I can go in and correct it. But that's not the story. The story is this. Years ago in the 90s, there was a site, kind of like Yelp, before Yelp, it was called City Search. And City Search would have these once a year. It was a very popular site. It would have these once a year polls, like best lounge, best bar, best happy hour. And they were very, very popular. And the winner of the City Search poll, this was a highly marketable thing to be able to tell, put a sign out, whatever it is. So I was just opening a new bar, and all the bars had happy hours, and I wanted to have a happy hour. But when you have a happy hour, you have to charge half-price drinks, and it's already tough enough to make money. And when you cut your drinks in half, unless you have volume, the happy hour is a killer. So I said, what am I going to do? And I said, well, I'd like to win City Search Best Happy Hour. I'm not even open yet. So I said, let me vote for myself, City Search Best Happy. But quickly I realized that it took a snapshot of your IP address, so you can only vote once a day from a particular IP address. So what I did was the following. I got 3 computers, and I got 3 modems, dial-up modems, because every time you disconnect from a dial-up modem, it dials in, you get a new IP address. And I downloaded a program which is still out there called Macro Express, which is a Windows macro program. And I programmed these 3 computers to dial in, wait a random amount of time between 30 seconds and 10 minutes or something, and vote for the Fat Black Pussycat as best happy hour. And I had these 3 computers going 24 hours a day. And we won Best Happy Hour. And then I started my happy hour, having already won Best Happy Hour. Then I started my happy hour, and we had a line up the block to get in to the happy. And that is how I hacked and bootstrapped my bar into relevancy from day one. And then after that, I actually did win legitimately Best Music Club at the Cafe Wah.
He also plays the oud, a man of many talents.
But
That's pretty
Coding,
remarkable.
oud.
But I mean, if there's one story to be told at my funeral, I had such satisfaction. I was so satisfied.
Well, I would
with
tell it,
myself.
but you've already told everybody 5 times.
Yeah.
That is so cool. This is so cool.
I know you guys will like that story.
Do you are you so you're looking to
And
get
it might not even be legal. I don't even know if it was legal or not. Go ahead.
Joshua, you're looking at a career in computers, I guess, and Benjamin in economics.
Something like that, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
I predict great success for both of you. You've passed. You see, the only thing that can stop you now is mental illness, but you've already passed that hurdle. You know, at your
Thank you.
age, if you were going to be schizophrenic, you'd be schizophrenic by now. There was a guy lived in my neighborhood, brilliant. He never went to school. The only time he went to school, he went in, he walked in one day, decided to take the PSATs. Does that still exist? And he became a National Merit Scholar, and he never went back to school. And his life spiraled, and he died at a young age. But that's not you guys. You guys have the brains and the mental health to do great things, and we look forward to.
And they're bilingual.
Yes, they're bilingual, and
Until then,
I don't know that Russia. I don't know how useful a language that is, but it may become useful.
All right, before you go, fellas, what do you
Thank
think? What do you think about Gaza? No, I'm just kidding.
Jesus Christ. Come visit us. Come visit us when you come to New York.
Absolutely.
We would love to. We would love to. This hour flew by. I don't want to speak for Joshua, but I had a wonderful time talking to you guys. I think we covered a lot in a short period of time. And you guys are all funny and such a pleasure to talk to. So thank you so much for having us.
That's very nice, guys. Beyond my wildest dreams. You guys are terrific. I would love to have you guys come in person. You can tell me off the record what you really think about all these political issues, and see a show at the Comedy Cellar. I'll introduce you to some interesting people.
Well, you've already met the most interesting person, but so it's all downhill after me. But we did have Trevor Noah just before the podcast was hanging out.
All right,
because
so-
he had done a show here.
So one more time, it is congestion-pricing-tracker.com. And this is very good work you guys did. And yeah, I hope you will. I don't know how much work it'll take, but it would be really interesting to be able to put the historical data up there, or just allow people to download the data set, as some sites do. Thank you very much, fellas. See you later.
Shana Tov.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Shana Tova.
Thank you so
I
much.
assume you're Jewish, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Shana Tova.
So, Shana Tova.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Could you stay on for a second till I close the?
Yes.
Are we on Riverside?
No, I just want to make sure I'm.
Oh, you want to
close
be
to
sure?
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all. This was wonderful. This was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks.
Yeah, this was very.
Absolutely. Make sure you get my email address and my phone number so when I come to New York. Okay.
All right, let us. So is that it, or are we going to do a slight debrief? Oh, we have John Spencer
That's it,
coming.
that's it. As my father would say, nice young men.
Oh, they're so great.
Yeah.
Look, I'm mad. I was rooting for congestion pricing, hoping for the best. It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like a raging success. If it's a success at all.
Well, I think the data experts basically.